The roads to the Istana Negara in Kuala Lumpur have been closely watched all week as politicians met with the king to decide on the makeup of the new government. After days of political uncertainty, the news that Pakatan Harapan leader Anwar Ibrahim had been named Malaysia's 10th Prime Minister was welcomed by markets. Bursa Malaysia hit a new intraday high and the ringgit rose against the US dollar and the Singapore dollar. But with no group winning enough seats to form a majority government, political manoeuvring will continue to be the name of the game.
Political stability is becoming a very rare commodity in Malaysia. I think over the next months and even years, you will still see this sort of jostling for powers among the various coalitions, among the various, let's say, component parties in the coalition, and even within every single party in Malaysia.
So this has some drawbacks to it, right? So there'll be a lot of horse trading and negotiations of who will assume the top ministerial positions once the coalition government comes in. And so I don't really foresee any major economic reforms because no single party wants to rock the proverbial boat, so to speak.
And regardless of who is the prime minister, I think they will be faced with the same set of challenges, like higher cost of living, higher global interest rates, a potential global recession next year.
The states of Sabah and Sarawak could be focal points in the new government after parties there emerged as kingmakers in parliament. There could also be a bigger voice for the Malaysian Islamic Party, or PAS, which won more seats than any other single party in parliament.
The political gains of PAS could result in a shake-up of the traditional political structure. So it gives them a lot more influence over how laws are debated in parliament and very well could push a lot of economic as well as social policy to the right.
One of the first tasks facing the new government will be next year's budget, after it was put on the back burner before the elections.
Without a budget, investors, businesses, even the local people on the ground, they don't actually know what is the outlook, what is the plan of the government.
Malaysia is facing a lot of economic challenges. If you ask anybody on the streets as to whether they are paying too much for their food and fuel and so on, I think that would be a resounding yes.
The policies have to address low wages in some segments and create higher paying jobs. I think that's very necessary. They have interim measures. They have announced interim measures or that they plan to increase food production, continue targeted subsidies.
Experts say support for small businesses and young workers should be high on the agenda.
PH, I think from the very, very short tenure that they have in government, they have a sort of like a history of introducing cost-cutting measures and rethinking of existing development projects, mega infrastructure projects, in favor of a broader social safety net projects, such as increment of welfare aid, eligibility to government financial assistance, raising the minimum wage.
Their manifesto actually consists of a lot of social policies. So they have certain reforms that prioritize competition, encourage MSME growth. They want to limit the influence of monopolies and cartels in Malaysia, enhance public service delivery, as well as they have a very strong export-oriented incentive program, whereby you have triple deductions on all the costs related to exports. And they want to expand the free trade zone programs.
Another reason for optimism, Malaysia's economy outshone many of its peers in ASEAN in 2022.
Largely commodities, the outlook is still fairly favorable. Palm oil prices are still good for plantation investors, despite the significant shortage of labor.
The renewable energy space, I think there's a new feature there about introducing EV infrastructure into Malaysia. So those things may depend on the government, whether it will still be their focus because of the economic outlook. But it's clear that they want to be one of the first movers in this region.
Ultimately, stakeholders say they are less concerned with who is in power and more with whether they will be able to maintain political stability.
I think they need to find a middle ground first and unite. They may have different aspirations, values, and ideologies. But important is to reflect on the fundamental strengths and diversity of the country and really what needs to be done to bring the country forward.
A Pakatan Harapan government would almost necessarily take in the old ruling party, namely UMNO, or by extension Barisan Nasional. Barisan Nasional side would provide the long period of experience of running the country, whereas the Pakatan side, I think, would likely supply with a number of very competent, very professional leaders who could run the economy. In the short term, I think the markets would welcome that because Barisan has the experience, Pakatan has the competence.